Hey everybody, I'm Paintball Dad. Thanks for tuning into my channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Since Father's Day is right around the corner, I'm going to be doing a Father's Day episode on my channel. I'm going to be giving a bunch of dad advice. Advice that I would like to give to my own kids when they get older, and advice that I think other young dads would find useful. While I'm doing that, I'm going to be cleaning off some of my paintball gear that I used this past weekend, and then eventually I'll switch over to some playing footage like I've done with my previous videos. But let's see. I'm going to try to keep it relatively short because I don't like making super long videos. I want to keep it maybe about like 10 to 12 minutes long. So I'm going to pick just 5 things out of my list of dad advice topics that I've come up with, because I've come up with a lot. But I'm just going to try to stick to 5. So let's see. The first one that I'm going to go with is always be relevant to your kids. This is something that I picked up from reading a bunch of stuff about parenting. Before I became a dad, I was nervous. So I did a lot of reading on books, specifically about parenting from a fatherhood perspective. One of my favorite ones is called Raising Men. It's written by a Navy SEAL, and I'm a military veteran myself. So it had a lot of things that I was able to connect with and relate to. So I found that book very helpful. And one of the things that I took away from it was that there was this overarching theme that you need to work on yourself in order to be a good role model for your kids. One of those things is basically to be relevant to your kids. Don't be the type of parent who just doesn't know anything that's going on in their kids' lives, because if you don't know anything that your kids are interested in, then they're not going to want to talk to you about other things. And it's frustrating when I see other young parents, like even around my age, who don't know even some simple things about their kids, like what's their favorite color, or what video games they like playing, what kind of YouTubers do they like watching. Like, these are all like very, to me, like simple things to learn about your kids, but it's also things that mean a lot to your kids. Like, I know my kids, my oldest is 8 years old, and he likes watching a lot of YouTube videos. I make sure to pay attention to the things that he's watching, because, you never know what kind of things that they're going to see when they're on the internet. So I want to make sure that I have some kind of a vetting process, first of all, to know what he's watching, and also I want to be I want him to know that he can talk to me about the things that he's interested in. So even if he wants to just talk to me about Minecraft, because he was watching a video on Paul Soares Jr. is one of his favorite YouTubers. If he was watching a video from Paul Soares Jr. about something that he did in Minecraft and now he wants to try it, or maybe he wants to buy a new video game, I'll already know what that game is, and I'll know like what it is that he's trying to do, and I can help him. He actually does look to me as kind of an expert in a lot of things, especially when it comes to video games. And I think that's cool. Like, I like the fact that he's 8 years old and he still wants to have a connection with me. Dad, I'm sorry if you're watching this. I'm sorry. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I did not feel like we had a great connection when I was a kid. I think you know that if you're watching this. So, having said that, to me, yeah, I feel very happy that my son is already 8 years old and he still wants to have a connection with me. So yeah, be relevant to your kids. It doesn't take a whole lot of effort. The next thing, let's see here. Read boring things. This is another piece of advice for young dads. I guess you could impart this knowledge on your kids too. But so I was never really great at school. I will never say that I was not smart. I think I've always been pretty smart, but smart in different ways. I'm not good at memorizing things. I'm not good at spending hours on end just reading things. To me, for the longest time in my life, I thought anybody who read things was super smart, very intelligent, beyond my comprehension. I couldn't reach their level. But then as I got older, I learned that there's a lot of junk. There's a lot of junk out there, even in literature. Just because someone reads a lot doesn't mean that they actually know a lot. They could be reading a lot of things that are just entertainment, just the same as watching a cartoon. There's a lot of books out there that are just meant for that purpose, to be entertaining. Now, I've never liked reading, but as I've got older, I found it really strange, but I learned that I like reading boring things. The reason I like reading boring things is because I find it empowering. So I'm the type of person now, and I didn't learn this until like just a few years ago. I am the type of person that will read the end user license agreement on things that you sign off, you know? I am that type of person because I find it empowering. I think it's, by the way, this is one of my old school paintball guns. This is a Spider Victor. I'm just cleaning it off. I used it this past weekend because it was raining. It's a mechanical paintball gun, so there was no, concern of me breaking anything. I'm gonna have to lube it just to make sure that everything still functions smoothly. But yeah, I like reading boring things, and it's been very good for expanding my knowledge on a lot of things. On that note, any book that is intended to help you, like stuff that's in the self-help section of your library, is going to be stuff that most people consider to be boring too, because when I was in the Air Force, I was a cop in the Air Force. I was security forces, and I think that's kind of really where it started, this whole realization that I like reading boring things. I liked reading the law. I liked knowing that I knew my job beyond a shadow of a doubt, that nobody would be able to correct me on my job. I would be confident in the actions that I took because I had read the letter of the law. I knew that I was in compliance. I knew that what I was doing was right, was justified. And that's one of those jobs that's, it's very scary. Like, it's scary when you get into an emergency situation and like you don't have time. That is not the time that you want to be second guessing yourself and thinking like, oh man, I wish I had known or prepared better for this situation. You want to do that when you have the downtime. And even in other things, like I've been reading the Bible recently. I understand not everybody is religious, and that's cool. I totally get that, but I am. Although most of my life I've been the type of person who just went to church, listened to the pastors, and I never really like read anything for myself. Then I realized, like, once I started reading the Bible, that I was like, wow, there's so many things in here, so much knowledge that I wish I had known, because it's very good knowledge, but it's not the stuff you're gonna hear about from your pastor, because it's not the stuff that catches people's attention. But there's a lot of stuff in there that is like really, it expounds your mind. I don't want to like preach too much, but if you have any questions on anything like biblical or Christianity wise, like feel free to message me. I think I have my email listed in my about section, but or just leave a comment. But anyways, let me move on to the next one. So I did 1, 2. Oh, always have a plan B. Now, this one is something, again, that I wish I had known when I was younger, so definitely impart this onto your kids. Always have a plan B. It's great to tell your kids, shoot for the stars, do what your heart says to do, follow your dreams and whatnot. That is all great, things to tell them, to encourage them. You want to encourage them. This squeegee is still a little bit too wet. But you should also tell them to have a plan B. So I am a millennial. I am 36 years old. I'm on the older end of the millennial scale. I graduated college in 2009. This was shortly after the stock market crash of 2008. You might see where I'm going with on this topic. So I went to college. I had a plan. I thought I was going to be a doctor in psychology. By the way, this is my GO4. I'm just wiping it down right now. I thought I was going to be a doctor in psychology. One problem after the other happened. When I graduated, obviously the stock market was the market in general was in shambles. People were losing their jobs left and right. I had a lot of family who lost their jobs, and it didn't take me long to realize that whenever I went for job interviews for jobs that should have been at my level, I was competing with people who had master's degrees, higher certifications than I did, because everybody was just struggling and desperate to take whatever job they could. So I couldn't get a foot in the door anywhere that I looked. And my grades weren't good enough that I could get into graduate school, and I wasn't getting any kind of work experience. So, nobody wanted to take a risk on me. Let me just wipe it down and remove it. But, so that was my plan for a long time, to be a doctor in psychology, and it did not work out. Not only that, but if you look up any kind of like information on underemployment rates for college graduates, it's bad. It's ever since like the 2008 crash, it's just been bad and getting not much better. I don't know if it's been getting worse, but it hasn't been getting much better. I just looked at it let me see here. I looked at it a little just before making this starting this video. So even for something as simple as going to college and following your college dream, here, understand that the odds are against you. I took a look at, so when I lived in New Jersey, Rutgers University was one of the big universities that was close by to me. So I'm going to use that as an example. Rutgers University has an acceptance rate of 68.2%. I rounded it down to 68% for purposes of making it simple. Their graduation rate is 84%. That's pretty good. But now let's break this down into like actual numbers that we can understand. So let's say you start out with 100 students. The acceptance rate is 68%. Now you have 68 students out of that 100 students. Out of the 100, not students, but 100 people who said to themselves, my dream goal is to become XYZ, whatever, and I need to get into this college. That's already 32 people out of that 100 who their dreams stopped right there. They did not get into their college of choice. Then the graduation rate is 84%. So 84% of that 68 people, that's roughly 57%, or 57 students left who actually continued on to finish their college degree. That's great, but you also have to understand finishing college is not the end goal. The end goal is to actually get the job that you're looking for. So right now, the underemployment rate in America is about 40%. That means 40% of people who have a college degree do not actually have a job that requires their college degree. They did not get the job that they went to school for 4 years. So 40% of 57, that means 60% of 57, because 60% is the percentage that is not underemployed. They're the ones who actually did get the jobs that they were looking for. 60% of those 57 students, that's 34 students. Out of the original 100 people who set out for their goal to go to college and get their dream job, only 34 people actually did get their degree and did get a job. Not necessarily even their dream job, but just at least a job that required college. So understand that even for something as simple as going to college and becoming whatever it is that you want to be, the odds are always against you. So always have a plan B. So let's see here. I think I did 3 points. I did relevant to your kids, have a plan B, read boring things. So I like to tell people, never turn a passion or a hobby into a job. There's a lot of people out there who will tell you that if you find a job that you love, or if you do something that you're passionate about, then you'll never feel like you work a day in your life. But I did not find that to be true. So let's take paintball, for example. I love paintball. I've been playing for about 18 years now. I actually played in a college league. I've played in a national league. I've played a lot of tournaments. What I learned through that experience was that as I got higher up in the tournament divisions, it just got more and more competitive, and it got to be more like a job. Suddenly I realized I had an obligation to play, to practice, to get better. Playing was no longer just for fun. Playing was now very intentional. I had to play with the intent that I was gonna improve from the last time I played. So it put a lot of stress on me. And I thought about that, and I realized, like, wow, I would not actually want to do this as a job, because then that takes all the fun out of it. So what I do like to tell people when it comes to looking for jobs, I like to say to them, find something that you're good at and then make that into a job. So for me, for example, I wish I had known that I was good at some of the things that I am good at a lot sooner in life, but eventually I found my way to join the Air Force, and I was Air Force Security Forces, which is the law enforcement division of the Air Force. And it turned out I was actually very good at what I did. And so now that I'm out of the Air Force, I'm not going to say specifically what I do or where I work at, but I work in the private security field. And the things that I do I am comfortable with. I feel like when I go to work, I know what my job is very well. I know that I'm going to do a good job. I know that I am competent. I feel comfortable that I'm never going to do anything that's going to get me fired. I am always going to have job stability, and that at the end of the day is like the most important thing, is to have longevity, or at least the feeling of longevity in your career. Because if you do something that you're passionate about, that's fun, well, what happens when you find that point where it's no longer fun and you suddenly want to quit? Then it doesn't matter that you found your passion or that you followed your passion. You want to find something that you're going to be able to do long term, and then you can fuel what it is that you're passionate about on the side. And that's basically how I live my life right now. I work full time, I make enough money that I can enjoy my hobby, and I've even found a way to make some money on the side through my hobby, because if you watch my videos, you'll notice that I have a lot of tournament footage. And what I do is, when I go to these tournaments, I reach out to some of the teams that are there, and I say to them, hey, if you want, I'll take some pictures or videos of you guys, toss me some money, and then we'll make it official. And who knows, maybe someday I'll even be able to monetize this YouTube if it gets popular enough. Now, the last piece of advice I'm going to give is for young dads out there like me: be adaptable to your kids. Understand that parenting is going to be difficult. And if anybody out there tells you that parenting is easy, they are one of the 1 in a million that just happens to get lucky. They are not the norm. Now, you should do everything you can to prepare yourself for parenting. I read a lot of books. I read a lot of resources online. I consulted with a lot of professionals, doctors, and family, and my wife did the same. But regardless of our best efforts, our kids still continue to surprise us. I'll give you a couple of examples from my firstborn son. My firstborn son, he's now 8 years old, but back when he was a baby, he did not sleep very well at all. There was really no point that he was able to sleep throughout the night until, I want to say, maybe he was like 5 or 6 years old. So you know how most people will say that, like, when you have a brand new baby, you're not going to get any sleep? That lasted for years for me and my wife. And we had read all the resources that we can find. We even consulted with our doctor, and we paid a professional sleep company, or I don't know what it was exactly, but we went on some website and we found these people that were specializing in creating sleep plans for babies. And we paid for one of these plans, and we implemented it, and nothing that we did worked. And so we had to adapt. We had to just realize that we only had ourselves to rely on. We had to work out our own means of finding time to get enough sleep for ourselves, so that we could, have the energy to take care of our son properly. And I'll give you a more recent example. So my son is now into video games and computer games, and for a little while he was spending way too much time on his computer games, and I felt like he needed to get outside a little more. So I decided to find a way to positively motivate him. I told him that he can play his video games as long as he goes outside, and then however long he spends outside, he'll get that same amount of time on his video games. So if he goes outside and plays for an hour, then he can play his video games for an hour. And I figured, all right, now this is a great way for him to get outside and get some exercise. Then one day he just surprised me and my wife with the wildest thing that I did not expect to hear him say. He said that he would rather never play video games again than have to earn his time to play video games. And I mean, what do you do to when you get something like that? A reaction like that is that just defies anything that I had ever read about or expected from any kind of parenting book. Luckily for me, that thought process of his didn't last very long. So now we're back on track, and he enjoys spending time outside now, and he gets his computer time afterwards. But like I said, the point is just be adaptable to your kids. But that about wraps up all of my dad advice for today. I think I'm gonna make another video like this in the future because I kind of like this idea, this trend of just giving dad advice. But I hope you found this insight and this information helpful. Now go out there and be a good dad.